Welcome to Accounting High.
And accountants hate change. That's the whole problem there. That's the whole crux of things, is that there's no pain in what they're doing now. But once there's pain, that's when they'll start making that change, and not until. And the pandemic was pain. Everyone's like, no, maybe it does work, because they were forced into that situation where they had to figure it out. And that's going to happen sooner than later with Chat GPT and AI. They're going to have to make some hard decisions pretty quickly.
Yeah, you touched on some important points. The pains of the present for an accountant have to be greater than the perceived pains of change.
May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Accounting High. Here, we have no rules in place as we're on a mission to set our own traditions. Whether you loved high school or you hated it, here's your chance to be a part of an unforgettable experience redone. So sit back, relax, and open your mind, because class is in session.
I repeat, may I have your attention, please?
This is another public service announcement brought to you in part
by Accounting High.
The views and events expressed here are
of the next generation of accounting and tech professionals leading this space.
The events and suggestions are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening
of this podcast.
Anything else?
Yeah.
So without further ado, introducing the star of our show,
Scotty and Jody.
We're gonna have a problem here.
So class is in session, and we have Mr. Grunden with us today, teaching us how to rap, how to run a practice in this new world. Jody, this is your first time on Accounting High, but second time on the show, right?
Yeah, second time on the show, and I love the intro.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, the first time you were on, we were Sons of CPAs. And that is, and still is, the most listened to episode we've put out. Accounting High, Sons of CPAs all together. It was the model cloud accounting firm. The model is on how to run a practice, how to run an accounting firm in the cloud era. I don't think your firm's a cloud accounting firm, and your firm has changed drastically so both of us have evolved. I've evolved the show. You've evolved your firm. And before we get into too many details, I wanted to start out with the Hawaiian shirts and your style, because I don't think we talked about that last time when you were on the show. And for any listener, you should go back and listen to that if you haven't listened to it yet. The Model Cloud Accounting Firm. It's in our backlog. It's on the show. But we didn't talk about the Hawaiian shirts, and it's a very interesting origin story. So I'd love to hear it. First, tell us, how many Hawaiian shirts do you have?
Oh, you have to ask that question, because my wife ever listens to this, I'm in trouble. I probably have close to 100 Hawaiian shirts right now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's an addiction.
It's an addiction. Of course it is, but it's fun and it's different. And when you think accountant, everybody always thinks, buttoned up, especially in the era that we grew up in. It's
100%.
You started doing your firm differently, and that's what stood out. That's what I loved about it. The cartoon images, we talked about that on the website. Everything that you led with was fun, but the origin story for the Hawaiian shirts, let's hear that.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of funny, because back in 2013, we were thinking about going remote, and we actually, it was probably 2012-ish, and we attended a conference, a fully remote conference in California. And at that time, we were squeaking by, not super profitable. We're trying to figure this thing out, and just trying to figure out not only the CFO side, but trying to figure out if this remote thing, is going to be something that we want to go forward with. And with that, learned a ton from there. There was the top, actually the first probably 25, 30 companies in the world that went remote were in the room together. And we were dabbling in it. We had one employee that was remote, and we were trying to figure this all out. And one of the people at the conference was a gentleman that ran basically conferences for business owners. And he saw me, and he's like, hey, Jody, have you ever spoke in front of people before? I'm like, yeah, I used to sell knives. I did that for a little bit. and spoke in front of thousands of people at the time. It was one of those type of deals. And I'm like, yeah, I'd be happy to. And, so he's like, hey, great. We're going to New Orleans. I'd love to have you there in 2 weeks. Would you be able to attend? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So the backstory is that, of course, we had hardly any money at the time because we're squeaking by, just making payroll, doing all the stuff that a lot of folks right now are experiencing, in the model, if not priced correctly. And with that, I had to go tell my wife, hey, honey, I know I didn't take you to San Diego, but now I'm going to New Orleans. Are you okay with it? And she's like, yeah, go ahead. So I'm getting ready for New Orleans. But at that time, I pulled my muscle in my back. And if you ever pulled a muscle in your back, man, it's painful being on an airplane. And so I'm fighting this real pain. And I'm supposed to give this presentation to these 30 owners. And I hadn't, they said, don't do it on a PowerPoint or anything like that. They be real and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, what am I going to tell these people? And so the whole time my concentration was, hey, I got to get through this back pain. So I get to New Orleans and my luggage doesn't follow me. It doesn't show up. So I'm like, okay, great. What do I do? And so I get to the hotel, which luckily the hotel is right across from basically a fashion mall, where the cruise ships come in. And I walked over there, super painful. The first thing I got was a bottle of water and some Aleve, for the pain, and drank that down real quick, paid for that. Then I got a charger from my phone, grabbed that, paid for that. And then I'm like, okay, now I got to find some clothes because I got 2 days with these owners of, what am I going to do? And he wants me to be different and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, there's a Tommy Bahama right across there. I had at that time I had like maybe 1 or 2 Hawaiian shirts. I loved them, but I just didn't wear them. And
maybe on vacation, maybe going on a cruise or something.
Yeah, you think, yeah, exactly. And so I thought, I'll go over there and see what they've got. And so I go over there and I'm like, oh, these are pretty cool. And then I look at the price tag and it's like, oh, these are pretty expensive. They're like $150 a shirt. I'm like, oh,
sure.
My wife is going to love me after this trip. And so I bought 2 of them and I bought some shorts. I had to basically bought the outfit because I had to have something to wear. And so I bought it and I went up to pay for it and the credit card got denied. I was like, oh, this is not good. So I pulled out my other credit card, went through no problem. I thought, okay, well, that was weird. And so then I went to right next door, just happening right next door, there's a shoe store. And this guy helped me pick out the shoes that goes, to go with the different Tommy Bahama stuff. So I was really going to be decked out here. And I got the shoes, went to pay for it with my second card, and it got denied. I'm like, what's going on? So I got my debit card out because I got plenty of credit. That wasn't an issue. And I got my debit card out. And I'm like, okay, well, I got money in the account. That should be a problem. And went through no problem. And so I didn't think about it. And then I went to, I had a pre-dinner with all the different companies there. And it was kind of like a kickoff dinner. And being the new guy in there, I thought, hey, this would be kind of cool if I just picked up the appetizers and stuff. And so I did. I picked up all the appetizers, which were like, all this really cool, real cool stuff. A lot of seafood. And I'm this is great. I'm having a great time, talking to people I don't know and all this kind of stuff. And I go to pay for it with my debit card, and guess what?
Oh, the debit card now.
Debit card doesn't work now. So I'm like, oh, great. So here I'm the finance guy, and I'm going to be talking first thing in the morning, and everything got denied. I turned to the guy to the right and said, hey, do you mind if you pick up my meal and the appetizer? I promise I'll be back tomorrow. Yeah. He's like, what's going on? He told me, well, you probably don't travel much. It was the fraud protection thing. All my cards were getting stopped with fraud protection. So basically what I did is I went back to the room. I called them all up, got them all released, went down to the ATM, got cash for everything, paid him first thing in the morning. And then I started my presentation. First thing, I was kickoff presentation. And I was so flustered. I really didn't know what to do. And I still hadn't, had the concept of what I'm going to do. So I was ill prepared going into this thing. And I started off with a story. Hey, here's what happened. Apologized for the Hawaiian shirt, and just went through. Everybody laughed, had a great time. And then I got the easel board out, and I thought, I'm going to show people how to be profitable. And so I broke out on stick figures, and I can't calculate in my head. So I had somebody be my calculator for me. And we're going through the presentation, and I go, here's what one person should generate hours and average bill rate. And I was going through, and I build a team. And I go, one person should generate about $200,000 in revenue. And I go, and if you break that out between 17 people on the team, it should be about a $3 million firm. And everybody's like, wow, it's like magic. What? I can't believe you guys just did this right in front of us here. And I go, how many people can increase their prices by $10 and not lose a client? Then I went 20, then I went 30. We kind of scaled back, and I go, well, hey, I'm just going to do it by $10. And so I go, let's increase by $10 because I tell everybody to start off with, you have to have at least 10% of your annualized revenue in the bank, which a $3 million firm that's $300,000, they're like, oh, there's no way, I don't have that kind of cash and can't do that. And so then I did the math again. It was like, miraculously it came out to $350,000 if you just increase it by $10. And like, oh my gosh, you're magic, and I thought this was kind of cool. The whole time I'm thinking, I failed. I came here. I'm in a Hawaiian shirt. This is a disaster. Everybody's loving it. Twitter just went wild with it. And the guy's like, I apologize. I go, hey, I'm so sorry. He goes, oh, that was the best presentation ever. And I'm like, oh, that was cool. And he goes, can you do it again? I'm like, well, yeah, I can do it again. When do you want me to do it? He goes, in 2 weeks in Chicago. I'm like, oh, well, I lived in Fort Wayne at the time. I was like, perfect. I can drive to Chicago. My wife's not going to care about that. And so I went home. I always bring one other person with me when I do my speeches a lot of times. And we decked out this town. I got embroidered shirts, golf shirts with the company logo on the sleeve. And I had nice Dockers. I was ready to go this time. And I show up at this conference and he meets me at the hotel. He's like, dude, what are you doing? I go, what do you mean, what am I doing? He goes, well, where's the Hawaiian shirt? And I go, what do you mean a Hawaiian shirt? He goes, well, that's what set you apart from everybody else. I'm like, gosh, it didn't even dawn on me. Here I'm scrambling. And I thought, okay, fine. So I went down to the Miracle Mile in Chicago there, bought some Hawaiian shirts at Tommy Bahama, and then I did the presentation. And from there on, it's like I've been wearing Hawaiian shirts ever since. And it's just one of those freak instances that people just know me now. Anytime I go to one of the conferences, they know me because of the Hawaiian. They can pick me out in the crowd pretty easily, whether it's an accounting conference or whether it's an industry type conference. They always know who I am by what I'm wearing. So it was a way to personal brand myself to really kind of stick it out. And dang, Scotty, you got the same story. We're just in Italy, and same thing happened to you.
It wasn't even Italy, but very, very similar story. But so I don't know if I should even tell mine too, but I'll tell a very brief version of mine. I think the moral of it, though, I'll get to. But for me, I was flying. It was a conference or a gathering for Accounting Salon. And I'm flying to Atlanta so we can drive to Seaside, Florida. And I had my luggage and everything. And I'm a terrible packer. I hate packing. Mm-hmm. I hate planning on the trip, planning what I'm going to wear. It's the worst experience for me. And it happens every single time. I've been traveling a lot now. And so I fly in and I'm about to get on the plane. And they tell me that I need to check my bag because there's no room on the overhead bins. So check my bag in Raleigh, North Carolina, less than an hour flight to Atlanta. And they check the bag and I get to Atlanta. Buddy's picking me up. Kenji Kuramoto, you know him, and a lot of our audience knows him. He's picking me up and we're waiting for the bags and my bag's not there. And admittedly, I got there late because I like to walk. So I don't take the trains in the Atlanta airport. Okay. And so I walked from I probably walked 2 or 3 miles just underneath because I like the museum. It's sort of like a museum to me. Yeah, so probably my bag was stolen. I don't know, but I say Delta lost my luggage because they did. It never showed up, and we were driving so then the next day we drove and we stopped at a Buc-ee's on the way. And if anybody has ever heard of Buc-ee's, it's amazing. This is like I don't know. It's like a Walmart, but a gas station. And, it's like tacky, but I had to get an outfit. So I went the tackiest thing I could find. And ironically, it made it good because it was Buc-ee's and because it was tacky. It turned into like a fashionable type thing too. And people loved it. It was like a Hawaiian Buc-ee's shirt with a bunch of like little cartoon, the Buc-ee beaver and everything. And I bought a few other things too, but I bought my whole wardrobe at Buc-ee's. So this was with all accountants, and typically I'm wearing like hip hop type stuff. So I'm already like different in a way, but now I'm adding this layer of Hawaiian shirts too. So then the next trip, Italy, and meanwhile, I'm also recording rap videos too. So that became the centerpiece of the video, was me with these different Hawaiian shirts. I bought 2 of them. One was Star Wars, Star Wars theme. The other one was Buc-ee's. And that became part of the music video too. So that was my second music video I ever recorded. And I'm wearing Hawaiian shirts. And then we go to Italy, and this was for Expensify. You were there, and it was amazing. And I kind of, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to record music videos where I travel, and I'm going to pack less. So I'm going to stress less about my packing because I'm going to buy a shirt for the video at the next trip. And at our resort, there was a shirt that just fit perfectly with the theme, Italy, all of it. You saw the shirt, and it also fit our badges too. Like my name badge was the same color as the shirt. It was crazy. So I used that for my video, and then the next trip, which I was with you again on, it was in Vegas at AICPA Engage, filming another music video.
Yep.
And you helped me pick out my next round of shirts because, again, I didn't pack because I knew I was going to be doing a video and I wanted something different for the video. And you helped me pick out this. Like, we went to this store. I'd never heard of it before, but it's the same one. If anybody's ever been to AICPA Engage, when you go to the escalators, the one with, what's his name? Frank Sinatra, like his arrested photos are all there in different colors. And it's like a very colorful store. Mace Zoo, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Could be, yeah.
They had the nicest shirts there. So I'm not a Tommy Bahama guy, but I'm going to go there every time we go to Vegas and probably get a different shirt there. But I think the moral of all of this was you just were being yourself, and that's what people were attracted to. And you were different by happenstance because of something else that happened. But you were the one who picked out that shirt, and you were like, I'm just going to do something different. And that's sort of what, and this was in 2012. On the onset of the cloud, and those were early cloud adopters, and early remote firm adopters was those early to the 2010s, 2012, those years. So you're already doing things differently, and you've already got a good way about you, way to tell stories, and that's what people were attracted to. So then when you show up in your polo shirts, it's like everybody else has polo shirts, everybody's wearing that, So
that's exactly right.
And I don't know. Did that excite you? Was this like, oh wow, this is a whole new look and a whole new frontier for me now?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. As soon as he said that, it was like the light bulb went, and it was like it was one of those things. It was like, wow, this is cool, and I'm not differing from this no matter what. And it was kind of funny because I got invited, and at that point I didn't attend a whole lot of accounting conferences. I kind of shied away from those because again I was so different. People really didn't accept what I was.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
And I got invited. I won an award in 2000. I think it was 17 for Innovation Award for Indiana. And then I got for the Indiana CPA Society. And then the AICPA nominated me for their DCPA Innovation Award. I thought, this is kind of cool. And they're like, hey, you're invited. I want you to come in, to the DCPA conference. And I'm like, well, I'll do it, but I'm not going to. Oh, they said, make sure you dress professionally. And I go, well, I'll do it, but I'm going to wear a Hawaiian shirt. You okay with that? And they're like, you being serious? I go, well, yeah. And they're like, well, let me find out. And so then they got back to me and they said, yeah, they'll let you wear a Hawaiian shirt. Just make sure you're professionally dressed. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So, what does that even mean after they say Hawaiian shirts? Like, just make sure it's buttoned up, maybe.
I guess. Yeah. I guess.
Make sure it's professional. And that's also become the differentiator, and it's also become something that people are attracted to now because it's different. And I think you don't start learning that until you actually start breaking the mold. It happened to me the first time I realized it was an advantage was when I was at Carbon X. This was last year, about a year ago in Lake Tahoe, and I was wearing just like my hip hop hats. I wear a hat backwards, or I'll wear a hat in a room where nobody's wearing hats. Like people had suits on and stuff. And I got invited on stage, and we did like a live podcast with Stu and somebody else at Carbon. And afterwards, somebody came up to me and said they were wearing a hat, and he was like, I saw you there wearing your hat, and I went up to my room and I went and grabbed mine because I didn't bring it down. He's like, I didn't wear it. I didn't bring it down here because I didn't think we were supposed to or allowed to. But then when I saw you wearing yours, and that was a big moment for me when I realized, like, okay, like it's actually attracting people and people take to this stuff. So now I'm just going to lean in. And now I have a whole wardrobe of polo shirts that I'm probably never going to really wear again. Maybe if I play golf, because you have to at golf. But even so, golf, I could probably wear a Hawaiian shirt. And so I'm going to replace all of my polos with Hawaiians, and we're gonna take over the world with our Hawaiian shirts here.
Yeah, dude. Same thing happened to me when I was at Engage speaking. Someone came up to me and goes, "Man, I didn't realize I could dress down." I'm like, "Well, yeah. Why not?"
It's just dressing now. I don't even think there's dressing up or down. I think we're blurring the lines between work and home. That's one of the lines in the Expensify rap. Blur the lines between work and home. Yep. And you've successfully been doing it, but this is scary. Like what you did with your firm and what you talked about on your last episode, you're changing the mold and you're breaking the mold and you're doing things the way you saw logically fit. You saw people doing it that way in other industries and other practices. And you applied that to accounting and to a practice, to your accounting firm, which was Summit CPAs. You still use that name. But some big things have happened since your episode, which is also, new news, relatively new news. None of this was happening before, but your firm, which was very successful, you were at 11 million, 12 million, somewhere around there, and very profitable. Tell me what happened after our recording.
Yeah. So this was back in October 2021 is when things started happening. I think we did a recording in January of 2022, so I was under a pretty strict NDA, so I couldn't really talk a whole lot about it. But within that 6-month period, we went from not having any interest in merging or selling our company. Why would we? We're making 7-figure. My partner and I both making 7-figure salary numbers. We're hugely profitable. On top of that, revenue is doubling every 3 years, and we just hit the $10 million mark. So why would we want to? And this firm out of St. Louis called Anders CPA Advisors approached us, and they talked to us, and they gave us an opportunity, an offer that we just really couldn't refuse. And it was just one of those things that, that the question was, hey, you're doubling your size. That means in a few years, you're going to be 20 million. Would you be interested in being 50 million? And we're like, well, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I go, well, we can help you get there, with the backing of a bigger firm. And so we thought, okay, well, that might be a great thing, but I don't want to lose. I don't want to get there and not, make any money from that. I mean, I want it to be a win-win for everybody. And they said, well, come back with a way we can do that. And so I thought, okay, well, I put pencil and paper together, and I said, well, here are my 5 different things. I went through them with each one. I figured one of these are going to say no, and like every other CPA firm out there said no, and with that, they're like, yep, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that, yep, absolutely. I'm like, seriously?
Wow.
Let me go back to the drawing board here and rephrase all that again.
Well, so there's a lot to unpack, but the biggest thing here was, you're doing things different than any other firm, and you're showing a lot of success. And I don't know if we've ever, it is unprecedented. What did happen with you was a larger firm is now acquiring yours. And I think it may have happened. It may be a bit similar to what happened with Bruce Phillips and Aprio. But what we're seeing here is a larger, would you say mid-market? Would you say the size of?
They're a top 100 firm. They're probably
top 100 firm
in the world. Yep.
Yeah. So top 100 firm is coming and acquiring next to them, a smaller firm to change from within. I mean, what did they see? What was their biggest attraction to what you were doing? Why did they want? Yeah.
Man, there were several of them. One, they were looking for a CFO practice that was profitable, because there's a lot of them out there that are revenue driven, and they're just building revenue and they're not building profits. And we were at about a 25% margin. So they were real excited about that. So we were running something that was growing at a high speed and super profitable, which really helped out. They were looking for a firm that actually had been successful at a remote environment, because they knew going forward that remote was here to stay. It was one of those things that wasn't going away. And so they wanted that remote environment. Hey, this firm can actually work remotely. And then they wanted that virtual CFO concept. That's the main thing we focused on. 90% of our revenue was virtual CFO services, how to provide those to clients. And again, they looked at that as the future. They looked at tax and audit as something that's going to be here for a little while, but they really saw the future in accounting being in the advisory side. And that's not just the CAS 1.0 stuff where you're paying bills and doing that kind of thing. It's a true advisory. You're meeting with clients on a regular basis, being part of their weekly meetings, helping them plan, helping them model different situations, forecasting, KPIs, all that kind of stuff is what they really drove them. So we had those 3 factors that was really solid. Then the last one, they're like, hey, how's your employee retention? And it was super high. And so they're like, well, how, so it's like, wow, you're accomplishing all these goals, high employee retention, high customer retention, and you're profitable. So it just was a win-win for them for sure. And when we came aboard, they said, you know what, one of the big things I told them is I don't want to be merged into the firm. I want to be my separate entity. So I'm technically merged into it, but we're actually our own service line. And so my marketing is still intact. HR is still intact. Everything is still intact as a service line, which is completely different than they've ever done with any other firm. Usually they just absorb them and absorb the clients and mix people up. Well, when here, I told them in order for us to grow and keep growing, because our flywheel is turning super fast, that we have to stay together. They were perfectly fine with it, which that was a big hiccup for a lot of the firms. A lot of the bigger firms called, even bigger than that, called and like, hey, that's a requirement. And none of them wanted to do that. The other thing is that, they were a St. Louis-based firm, even though they're, top 100 in the nation. Most of their concentration was in St. Louis, and we were the opposite. We were totally national, and a lot of times we have basically North America, Canada, and U.S. and a few other places, and with that was a difference for them too. Hey, can we expand without having a footprint? Can we do what Summit has been doing, and become a national firm without having locations in New York and all these different places? And so it was another way that they could actually expand without spending a lot of capital and putting feet on the ground in different areas.
Well, and I think that's one of the biggest changes in the way firms are run now is you have industry verticals. And before, you may have had industry specialization, but the only real vertical that a lot of larger firms had was geography.
Right.
It was a geography niche. They niched in St. Louis and that vertical. And so they have their footprint. But what you've shown is, and what firms are doing now, and what people are adopting now, is finding that industry specialization, because that's what allows you to do the advisory. That's what allows you to have higher margins and to go deeper with clients and to get more focused. And that your footprint then becomes, for you, it was marketing agencies. That's our footprint in the U.S. And we're going to do everything around that. The compliance is more of an afterthought almost. It's something that has to be done, and it still can be very profitable, but it becomes part of the whole, service flywheel that you're offering. And it's proving to be very powerful with the remote age and with the digital age. You're everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's 30% of the clients that we do work for, we do the accounting for. We'll do the transactional stuff, right? But 90% we're actually doing the CFO stuff. And so, it's a third of our clients we're doing the back office stuff with the CAS 1.0.
Sure.
The rest of it we're doing, advisory, which is a big niche, right? That's a niche in itself. And we've been doing what they call CAS 2.0 since 2004. So we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just becoming something that firms are starting to adopt, and they're really starting to try to figure out how to scale it, because that's a big part of it. They can do it, but they can't figure out how to scale. And we've been doing that, like I said, successfully for a long time. And with that, so we've actually niched a vertical, I guess a horizontal, whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
CFO side. And then we attacked the creative agency side, and 60% of our clients are in that space. And so we went both service and industry, and that's when we actually started seeing growth just blow up. And that's one of the things that Anders saw when they did it. They're like, hey, do you think you can repeat this model with other industries? I'm like, well, absolutely. We just need to get thought leaders in those industries, and we can go to town on them. And so that's kind of the idea, because what Anders wanted us to do is do a 10x, go from 10 million, or 5x, go from 10 million to 50 million by 2026, just in the virtual CFO service line. And right now we're on pace to doing it. We're almost going to hit about 15 million this year and 20 million, and then it just continues on. But we're pacing that because we're looking at potentially not only bringing in clients outside of our vertical, which we've always done, we just never market to it, right?
Sure.
But now we're going to start marketing towards other verticals and rinse and repeat the entire process.
It's got to be exciting
for
you. Like, the sky's the limit here. And what Anders has provided you was resources, and now you have a foundation of clients too. So because they are a very large firm, once you decide what's the next vertical, the next industry, then you take that collection of clients and start working with them too, and start collecting them into another maybe subset of Anders, where it's another version of Summit. And it's like building out bubbles of different, or pods, or whatever you want to call it, of firms within the firm.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's kind of like building, like I said, those pods. and creating entrepreneurs within inside each pod. You know, as we have different pod leaders, one head of the creative agencies, we're going to have one head of cannabis, one head of trucking, logistics, law, and as we continue to build these different things, we'll have entrepreneurs running those different pods to make sure that they're out there beating the drum on, hey, here's how a cannabis company, you know, successfully, you know, it becomes successful, earns profits. You know, here's what we need to look for. Here are the risks and so forth. Law the same way in the other verticals. And so, yeah, so it's exactly what you said. So it's exciting for me because it gives me the opportunity to actually really kind of train up thought leaders in different industries to really take the reins like we did with the creative agency space.
Oh, that is so dope. It's a whole new frontier too for a lot of these firms, and they can learn from this. And this is the model. This is why we're right in the book, How to Rap, how to run a practice, because rapping is different than MAP. You know, MAP was, are you familiar with MAP?
No, go for it.
Manage an accounting practice. Like that's, or manage a practice. I don't know. Ron Baker told me about it, and it's apparently really big in the accounting space. Okay. Running a practice or managing a practice was the way that was taught. Like this is the way. That's probably how Anders learned how to manage their practice. That was what was done. And then the whole idea of running a practice is in the cloud era, it's all different. Like there's foundationally certain things that are the same, the way you do the compliance and all of that. But you've added several different layers or different aspects. And it starts with that whole 2.0 that you've already been doing. So for the listeners who hear CAS 2.0, you know, client accounting services was the 1.0. And it's like the back office, the bill pay, the other things, connecting apps. But the advisory, which we've all been hearing about, it practically speaking, you talked about how you guys did it on the first episode, the CFO work. But what it really is, helping business owners throughout their journey of running a business and helping them become better business owners, make better financial decisions, and giving them the tools that they need to be able to make those decisions, and using the stuff that we do as accountants to then look forward and make decisions, better decision making.
100%, Scotty. And all the bigger companies have CFOs on staff or have level of people that we have on our team. It's a small business, the $1 million to $20 million business range that they just can't afford it yet. They've not figured it out yet. And that's where the CFO market's huge. And CFOs can come in and really sit alongside those folks on a weekly meeting and go through and help them with the forecasting, the financials, the pipeline, all the different areas, revenue rec, you name it, the different areas, to really kind of sit beside them and really kind of help them make decisions. Because again, you know, they've got the business to a certain point, and it's really our job as CFOs to help them, not do it for them, but help them get it to the next point. You know, again, the CEO is always has the full responsibility of the financials, but we guide them and really kind of help them see the direction, see the path.
And what you did very successfully that most, I don't know if too many people that have been able to do this, is you kind of productized it, and you turned it into a system that was repeatable, that you could take, and correct me if I'm wrong, you could take accountants and make them better CFOs.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I would say not everyone. Not every accountant is made to be an advisor. I make that super clear because,
sure,
you know, we went into that thinking that, oh, we're going to train every accountant we have. That's just going to be the path. They're going to want to eventually be that CFO. Then we start having people drop out, or they would start it and they'd find another job or whatever. It's like, well, not everybody wants to be that advisor. So we have to be really careful not to say that, hey, that's everybody's path. But, you know, with that, if the individual wants to be that advisor, wants to get out of the daily grind, which I would say maybe only 20% of the accountants out there want to get out of that daily grind. They love that daily grind. I can't stand it personally, but they love it, and hats off to them. But for that 20% that wants to go there, then creating that path for them to do that, you know, sitting alongside meetings and watching, you know, us, you know, speak with clients. That was a big part of it. You know, just kind of showing them how to talk to clients. I mean, for most people, they just don't understand. They never had that real experience. And you know, as they've gotten 8, 9, 10 years of experience as an accountant, you know, they start wanting to be that advisor. Some of them do, some of them don't. We've got accountants on our team that have been with us for 8, 9 years that said, Jody, if you ever put me as a CFO, I'll quit. And I'm like, that's cool. You'll never be asked again.
That's really important part of this too, because we used to say, like, it's those unicorns, or the people that are 1 in 10 is what I thought it was. You know, you said maybe 2 out of 10, but 20%. But those are the highly ambitious accountants. Those are the ones that are great at interfacing with clients out the gate. They can talk to anybody. They're typically people that you could say, oh, maybe you can get into sales too. They're great with anybody in the room. And once you notice that, one thing I also realized with those types of people though is they're highly ambitious, and it's hard to contain that too, because then they get to a certain level where then they feel like they could go out, do it on their own. So have you run into that? We talked about this on David Barrett's episode, because those are the types of people he hires. And how do you align that ambition with the firm, and how do you help fuel that without them outgrowing you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Again, you're going to have a certain percentage of folks that no matter what you do, they're going to outgrow you. And that's just life, So you can't keep everybody. You can't keep 100%. But what we wanted to try to do is we wanted to try to create that entrepreneur spirit, because you're talking about an entrepreneur is what you're doing. Trapped inside of an accountant's body is what it comes out to being, right? And so we're looking at that entrepreneur. And so what do entrepreneurs like to do? They like to be rewarded for their efforts, time, and they're putting into things. And they like to figure things out, improve processes. Entrepreneurs love to do a lot of this stuff. So we had to create an incentive program that allowed them to be compensated fairly for the amount of work that they're actually managing and overseeing. And so, our CFOs will make, on the start, they'll make about 135 without any clients at all. We'll supply the clients to them and build it up. But our top end CFOs, they'll make over $250,000. And with that makes it super tough then for them to break away and say, hey, I'm going to give up this really great job that I love doing because I'm meeting with all these entrepreneurs and I'm talking. My day's different all the time.
Sure.
That they love, to take that risk and say, I'm going to throw it all away and start over. It's really tough for them to do. So we want to make it tough for them to make that decision to leave. And that's a good thing, right? We want to make it so they love to come to work. And we find that with 80-90% of our CFOs love to come to work, and again, you have got maybe 5 or 10% that is just a struggle for them and they can't do it, and maybe it's the wrong level. Maybe you got them in the wrong bucket. Maybe we need to put them back over in the accounting side. So you've got a couple different avenues for folks to make sure they stay with you.
Yeah, it's so important to keep them motivated, and that begs the other question too with remote work that a lot of firms and people are running into is, how do you keep morale up? How do you keep them engaged and excited, or just, overall morale in remote firms has been tough to keep up because you don't have that sense of camaraderie, or you don't have as much of it, and you don't have that office, the collective for everybody to go to, that one central location.
Well, there's a simple formula there. You're right. If you decide you're going to do a remote office, or some of your team's going to be remote, and you never have them in the office, never where they can actually physically touch, hang out with somebody, grab a beer, coffee, whatever, you're going to lose them. We find that about 6 months they start losing connectivity with the folks in the firm. And so we purposely have 2 retreats a year. One retreat we actually are having in St. Louis, since that's where the mothership's at, and there's another 300 folks there, in addition to our 75 that's on the CFO team, where they get a chance to actually hang out, and it's not a workshop-y type of thing. And we'll have a workshop here and there, but it's more soft skills. Hey, here's how to deal with difficult conversations. Here's how to deal with different types of people. We'll go through DISC assessments. We'll go through Working Genius, all the different stuff there to make it fun and enjoyable for them when they're there. And I'll tell you, the team really looks forward to it. And so we have one in St. Louis, again, with everyone else. And, they just love hanging out with each other till 1 a.m. We always start like at 11 o'clock. That way, if they want to get things done in the morning, or if they want to stay out late, they can do that. But that's where the camaraderie builds, right? And then we have one in addition to that, just somewhere different. And so we went to Scottsdale, we went to Indianapolis, we've done all different, New Orleans, we've done, Vegas, you name it, New York City. We've done different locations where we can actually, get everybody together and just kind of do the same thing, but in a different location outside of St. Louis or outside of an area where they're at. And so again, it's an enjoyable experience for them where they can let their collars down a little bit. It's very informal.
Unbutton their Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah, they're not wearing Dockers and stuff when they're there. All that kind of stuff. It's out the window, and they, like I said, they just enjoy hanging around each other, and that's where they really vibe in. And we see, again, it's a 6-month cycle. Every 6 months, we need to spend the money to actually do that. And so, a lot of folks are like, well, I'm going to spend a lot of money and because I'm not going to have brick and mortar anymore. I'm not going to have facility costs. Well, wrong. you really do have that same dollar amount. You're just allocating it now to your team and doing these retreats. And so, we're going to spend roughly $3,000 a person bringing these folks to a retreat for Wednesday to Friday conference. And, again, it's money well spent. That's why our retention is very high and stays high because of I think because of the retreats, but also it really helps that friendship, right? Because one of the biggest things that people leave is they don't have a friend. Well, it's hard to have a friend when you're fully remote, but you and I can hang out in Las Vegas. I look at you as a friend.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have looked at you as a friend if we hadn't done that, just
Yeah,
because.
well, Italy started that, right?
Italy, yeah.
And
Italy.
our wives were hanging out too, so they became
Absolutely.
friends.
Yeah, and so that's what happens, and that's what has to happen if you're going to do a remote environment.
Yeah, well, it affords you that space, and relaxation is where the real conversations happen. Like in those moments of relaxation and where you're hanging out, that's where real conversations can happen, and that's where real bonding happens, and that only happens when you have that space, and that's what an office provides. You always have that water cooler area, but it's not the same when you're just Zoom meetings. There is no space to talk because everybody's waiting to get off the meeting to go do the next thing. And so this is great. And you provided some practical cost numbers too. So for a 10-person team, you're looking at least $30K for a trip or retreat like this. So look at all the money you might be saving in rent. That's going to be repurposed to a concentrated event that could have longevity too. And maybe you don't have to spend $3,000 a person, but roughly that's probably what it's going to be all in all if you're going to do something special.
Yeah, I think it's important also that not to think that you've got to bring everybody to a brick and mortar location. Like if you're based out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, you got to bring everybody to Fort Wayne because you're going to save all that money. The problem you find out there is you got folks coming in town, they're ready to hang out, but the people that are in Fort Wayne, they're going home. They're going home, yeah, and you don't have that connectivity again. The exact thing you're looking for, you find out that it's not there, and so that's why it's important to have that away, from location, at Fort Lauderdale or somewhere you can actually bring folks to. One travel tip is make sure that if you do find that location, it's got a centralized hub that it's easy for airplanes to get in and out, because that's going to be one of your biggest expenses. It's influence, whether you're spending $600 on a flight or $1,500 on a flight. Big difference there in price.
Yeah, that definitely makes a huge difference in travel, and people won't be losing bags because they don't have to go to Atlanta to drive to Seaside, Florida, right?
Exactly.
And also, like, you could. So what I've done is I've taken the team to conferences. So I've taken something that's already happening and then poured on top of that. So I have been doing that since we started going to ZeroCons, and so I'll take the team, and different people go each time. But that's always some of the best experiences that they've had, because then they get to meet others in the profession too, and they also get to meet a lot of the tech partners. So doing something like that, if you can't afford to just rent out a whole place, you can already have an event. You just pay for the event tickets for everybody, and that's
and be creative with it. That's awesome. Way to be creative. Another way is like in our next one, we're actually developing a customer advisory board, and we're going to have those customers, like 5 or 6 clients, come to the
You're doing an advisory board. That's awesome.
Doing an advisory
wow.
board. That way they can hang out with the team for the dinner at the end of the day. The team leaves, and then it's the directors are there and asking questions and figuring how we can improve things. So, we're having our first advisory board meeting following a team retreat. So we're adding on there, trying to save costs and save time for our team.
Well, it's investing the money in something like that too, because that's got to be like, how do you decide which customers to have on, but then also how do you handle, like, so they're paying you, and now you're going to pay for them to travel or to do certain things too. Like, do you just give them a discount, or do you just pay for it outright? Like, well, how does that?
I'm just paying for them to be there. So I'm paying for them to, be in this is going to be, the next one's in St. Louis, put them up in the hotel, and then just take care of it. And we're thinking about just giving them a 1 month free service, just, for helping us out, providing that level of insight that we're hoping that we knew, but we will definitely find out once we have the advisory board.
Oh, that's awesome. So give me some practical, like the advisory board, how many customers, and how did you choose them? Yeah,
so we have 8 of them, and we decided to choose them in the first one's going to be strictly in our vertical. So it's going to be creative agency vertical. And so we picked 8 clients, varying sizes and varying engagement levels. So we've got some folks that we meet with on a monthly basis, one to two times a month with our controller level. Half of those are in that level, and then half of them are on our CFO level, where we're meeting with them on a weekly basis. And then again, varying degrees of revenue. Are we taking care of that $20 million firm equally as we're taking care of the $1 million firm? So we want to look at all the different areas that we could have holes in it. And we just simply pick clients, new clients and old clients. We combine them both. We didn't want to pick 8 of our number 1 clients. That doesn't make sense, because they're going to tell you, they're going to tell you you're great, because you are. So we picked new clients as well as old, so new, medium, and old. So we went through and really pinpointed the ones. And the cool thing about it is we asked 8 clients, all 8 said absolutely.
Of course. So what you've done is you're going to be changing their lives too. I always say 0 changed my life in so many ways. Without 0, I wouldn't be doing this show, or wouldn't be doing a lot of things that I'm doing. Changed my firm. It was the onset of the cloud. They invited me to their partner advisor council. It was the first one I've ever been on. I didn't really know what it was, but I was excited about it. And I met a lot of other firm owners. And that's what these creative agencies, they're going to do, is they're going to be able to meet and get close to other. They're going to form bonds, and they're going to realize, how much they have in common with each other too. And so not only are they helping you, but you're helping them create strong bonds and friendships that they're going to probably take with them outside of that too. That was amazing for me. I met some of my core group of friends that we still all hang out and we see each other all the time now, but it was only because of 0 bringing all of us together. That's sort of what you're doing there in a really cool way. That's a big unlock when you start to meet more people in your industry and in your profession. I could say that for any accountant, going to conferences is huge, and getting that group of peers that you could, that you see as peers and not as competition. It used to be, when things were very locally driven, geographically, everybody in your local area, you're not going to meet up with them. They're your competition. You're fighting for clients. So it's a whole different mindset when it comes to growth and it comes to running a practice. And you've seen that. You saw that early stages.
Yep.
And change the game, changing the accounting game. We're trying to distill everything that makes running a practice different now than it was before. And every time I try to think of those differences, it's things that you did at Summit that were unproven, and slowly, they become proven, and they seem. I would think that for you, it all seemed like common sense. Why are we not doing it this way? There's got to be a better way. Why are all the firms doing it this way? And maybe, did you feel like, were you missing something? Why isn't anybody else doing it this way? When you find out that new way, do you feel like, well, am I wrong?
It was amazing, Scotty. We've been doing it for a long time, right? And so I thought, you know what? Why do I go to these conferences and they talk about, hey, this is going to be what's going to happen down the road? And it's like, well, we've been doing this for 10 years. What do you mean down the road? And so I thought, well, let me start talking at conferences. Let me start speaking. And I started speaking at conferences. I'd have a ton of folks show up at the conferences. We'd go through everything. I'd have lines afterward. People are coming and talking to me. And the thing they would always say is, wow, that is super cool, but that would never work for us. And then they would give 10 different reasons. I'm like, yeah, you're right. That would not work for you because you've got to be able to accept change. And accountants hate change. That's the whole problem there. That's the whole crux of things, is that, there's no pain in what they're doing now. They're billing by the hour. They're doing all the stuff that I'm like, why would you ever do that? Because there's no pain in it. But once there's pain, that's when they'll start making that change, and not until. And the pandemic was pain. It forced clients to think, hey, maybe this remote thing does work. After we were, of course, the only firm in the world that this would actually work for. Everyone's like, no, maybe it does work, because they were forced into that situation where they had to figure it out. And that's going to happen sooner than later with Chat GPT and AI and all that kind of stuff. They're going to have to make some hard decisions pretty quickly. And I hope they make the right decisions. And if they do, that's going to be a very big reward for them.
Yeah, you touched on some important points. I've said this a lot. The pains of the present for an accountant have to be greater than the perceived pains of change. Everybody's afraid. Our behavioral drivers, the desire to avoid pain and to seek pleasure. And that the one to avoid pain always comes first, and we're always avoiding change and avoiding all of this like scary stuff because we think it's going to be painful. And a lot of people are content with mild pains. They'll just take a Tylenol or an Advil. That's the analogy, and they can get through it, right? Like as long as they can do this, and they find ways to not really treat the problem and to go into the change. And that's the hardest part, is accepting that change is hard. It's very hard. I've been going through a lot of it the past couple of years. I've had an existential change, in my whole life, and that's been difficult. But being on the other side of it is a breath of fresh air. And you said this on the last episode too, was you prescribe and show people exactly what to do, step by step, on how to make these changes. And you've been doing it. You created courses and you've created ways for people to do it, yet they still don't. As much as they may want their hand to be held, once it comes down to actually making the change, they're too afraid to do it, and they would rather put their, go back to their office and just get the work done. And then all of a sudden, like, they feel relieved, like that they don't have to change.
Mm-hmm. Well, they try to justify their initial thought, right? Their initial thought was, hey, I'm doing it right. And so they look for ways to justify that. It's like, oh, they do that. Oh, that's why it's not going to work for me. And they don't do it. Or, hey, I'll do that down the road, and down the road never comes. They just need to, set their mind and actually do it and accept it and really work towards it. It's just like any obstacle, right? The bigger the obstacle, the harder it is to get around it. And you want to make those obstacles small. Have cash in the bank in order to make the change. Do different things. Whatever your reason is for not making that change, figure out a reason how I can accomplish that, not just accept it. And that's what we did all the way throughout. Scott, I wish I could say that I invented all this stuff, but I invented zero of it. I just took somebody else's idea and went with it. That's what made us successful, is that able to take that risk. And we got rid of the hourly bill, because we need to figure out how not to be the bank anymore. I didn't want accounts receivable. I was
right.
a $10 million firm, and I didn't want to have AR. At that point, I was $1 million firm or $600,000, but I couldn't afford it because I didn't have deep pockets. And so I was like, how do I figure this out? Do I just continue on, tread through it, bill like crazy, and then and then just eventually be where I'm at with millions of dollars? No, I tried to figure out a way we could do it, and that's where the subscription-based billing came from in 2007. So we built a $10 million firm with no AR, no WIP. Yeah. Kind of cool. And
kind of.
Yeah, kind of cool. It's big time. My Monday, like I told you last time, Monday is my favorite day of the week because that's when we collect all of our fees for the week. We bill weekly. We don't even bill. We just zap their bank account every Monday, for that same flat fee. And clients love it. We love it. It's a great win-win for everyone.
Yeah. So your day-to-day, you say you love Mondays now. Mm-hmm. What does your day-to-day look like now that, you've been acquired? Has anything changed? And
yeah. That's a great question. Nothing has really changed. So, every position that I've had, first was, hey, I'm going to be the CFO for clients. I was that for a while. How can I get rid of that? So I figured out a way to offload my responsibilities to clients. So I'm not working with clients. I haven't been for like the last probably 6-7 years. And probably even longer than that. Then it was like marketing was my next baby. It was like, I love marketing. Because we do a lot of content marketing. I just love overseeing it. And then I gave that away to a person that's highly more qualified than me, and she's running with it and doing great. My last one was sales, business development. I thought, you know what? There's no way we're going to get that $50 million if I have somebody else come in and close deals, right? Because I'm the best, right?
You're the best.
We always think that, right? And of course, we've got a business development, right? We brought in, and she did a phenomenal job. She's like, wow, I sat and listened to it. I thought, I guess I'm not the best. She's the best. So I'm going to have her do it. And that's the last responsibility that I'm giving off on major areas of the company. So my duties right now, they've gone from being in the weeds to owning each of the different divisions to now just overseeing things, becoming that, going out and promoting what we're doing, going to the different conferences and speaking, all of that. That's more my job right now. And my job is to make sure those verticals really pick up and go. And so we've got plans for all the verticals to be thought leaders and really kind of help the vertical teams, be successful. And so, the overall revenue growth of the company is or actually our department, I guess, as you want to call it, is my number one focus. And, if we succeed or fail, it's going to be because of that, really pushing that, putting the time into making sure that we go from 10 million to 50 million.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you're doing all of the logical things, right? Like this is, again, nothing's unique, but it's the way that you put it together what makes it unique. The fact that you're wearing the Hawaiian shirts, in that context, it's always contextual, and the way that you're doing it, it's not almost like you're not taking huge risks, things that may seem risky or perceived to be risky, but you're seeing that it's proven out in other areas.
Right.
This partner advisor council, like that you're doing, software companies have done that. Other companies have done that. I've never heard of an accounting firm doing it, but it's logical. It makes sense. And it's an investment. You're going to be spending money on it, but you see that long tail of it. And you've already gone through periods of no margins, of losing money, to see that it is hard to change and to go through it, but to have the fortitude and to be able to push through the hard times because you have those reserves is great. And you've gotten out of your own way too. And I think that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners, firm owners, we have that problem. I've always gotten in my own way. And in order to get out of those processes, you realize there are other people that can do this. And on the onset, they may not do as good of a job as you, or they may do a better job once you really get out of the way.
Right.
That's what I'm finding at my firm. On a much smaller scale, I've got myself out of any of the production work, any of the review, and then any of the sales and marketing. And now I just do this podcast and I do the raps and stuff. And I haven't even made all the hard changes. We haven't even picked an industry vertical yet. I think we're going to go software at the firm, and I think we've started to land on that. But we've been talking about this for 4 or 5 years, and still haven't picked anything and taken that big step. We started to try to do that, and then always hit a roadblock along the way, and I don't even push through. So that's the next frontier for me, at least. But this is awesome. Could keep going on talking forever, but I like to keep these shorter now and less rambly. People listen to the full episode of around an hour. So tell the audience what you got coming up next, or what are you excited about next, like in the pipeline with Anders and Summit?
With Anders, we're looking to, like I said, get to that $50 million mark. So we're having we have quarterly director meetings, making sure that we're on pace, making sure we're doing the rocks that we need to overturn, and really focus on that. So it's been an exciting, it's been an exciting year and a half since the merger's going extremely well. Next 3.5 years, getting that 50 million is going to be exciting. And then the voyage after that is, do I want to continue on, or do I want to do something different? Right now,
are you there for 100 million, or are you going to have to dip out?
That's my thought. It's like, when I get that $50 million, it's happened all along. Hey, let's get to $1 million. We're going to be perfect. 10 million. Let's get to 5 million. It's going to be great. 10 million is like, oh yeah, everything's going to be perfect at 10 million. Then it's like, well, let's get to 20 million. Now it's going to be 50. Then it'll probably be 100. And I would love to be part of that, getting it to $100 million company. That'd be pretty sweet. And I think
this is the Summit arm of Anders. What is Anders as a whole? Where are they at?
So Anders as a whole, prior to the merger, was right around 60 million.
Okay.
And with Summit, we brought on probably another 12 million added to that. Now we're pacing about 15 million for this year. So the idea is that we will actually be the biggest arm of Anders.
Right.
The CFO side in my opinion, will be the largest division or largest service line that Anders has within the next 3 years.
And you're going to be creating octopus arms of other industry verticals too. So then you could say all of those are offsets or offspring of Summit with different verticals, because you're scaling that same system that you had at your firm.
Yeah, and keep in mind all the extra stuff, like, the Anders does like valuations, you name it, that they do it. Look at all the things that we were outsourcing to other folks that we can bring in house and really help implode even more.
Well, yeah, that right there brings your revenue up already naturally because of the extra service offerings, and increases the margins because you're not outsourcing it. Really, it's still part of the same operation, and that's huge. What did you end up doing with the workers' comp audits, or what was the audits that you guys were doing?
Yeah, we did 401k audits. So that was the experiment. We're like, hey, can we do? Someone said, oh, you can't do this with anything but virtual CFO. We're like, well, let's try something different. So we did the 401k. We started with one, and we ended up selling that as a unit to Anders, and we had, I think, about 150 to 200 audits within the 4 years that we started, or 5 years we were doing it. So we blew that up too. And it was, the fortunate thing is Anders specializes in benefit plan audits too. So it almost doubled their practice in the, just with, just like that in the benefit plan audit. And the engine was going well with that. We're picking up 30 a year, and they're continuing on with that process. So it's super exciting to see that being so successful. And it was just one of those other things that, hey, can you do it? Can you do it in tax? Can you do it in audit? Can you do it in all these different things? Yeah, you can do exactly what we're doing. You just have to kind of be creative and figure out a way to make it happen.
Well, and you reverse engineered a lot of stuff too. And it's so poetic that you work with creatives, because you're creative in the sense of everything you were doing as an entrepreneur. And you've afforded yourself to create your own lane in a way, and also make your own decisions and start, it's almost like you started with the end in mind. You knew what you wanted it to look like, what the outcome was, and you designed your life and your firm around that. So now it's like, this is what we've said a lot on the show. Like, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have everything your way. It's going to take a lot of time, and it takes a lot of intention, and you're going to have to be different in a lot of those ways too, because being you is unique. Like, you've been yourself all throughout this whole journey, and you've kind of stuck with what you've wanted to do. Even when it gets hard, you still push through because you see the end, you see the long game.
And we were fortunate with the merger that Anders ended up being the quality firm.
But they said yes to everything that you wanted, because you had that in mind. You said, if we ever are going to do a merger or something, I'm sure you said that. If we ever are going to do something, it's got to be on our terms, and it's got to be this way. And if they say no to any of these things, we're just not going to entertain it. And you got to the point where somebody said yes to everything, every list of like demands that you had. They were like, yes, this all seemed too good to be true for them. And it sounds like it has been.
Yeah, it's been great for both of us. It definitely wasn't one-sided in any means. It was a two-sided deal. It was perfectly what they were looking for. It was exactly what we weren't even looking, but it worked out exactly perfectly for us. And the leadership is awesome. They've held true to everything they've said, and definitely a solid firm. So we made the right choice for sure in doing so. And with that together, as one combined firm, we're going to really blow things away, I think, going forward.
You're going to continue to change the way we rap, the way we run a practice. And it's like, it seems so logical after the fact. When I heard you guys got acquired, I immediately, during that time, at least, I was always thinking like tech companies are going to start acquiring firms, or this whole, the private equity or the VC, I thought we were going to start seeing more of that. And we did kind of see that, you got the pilot type stuff out there, but this was a logical move. This was a traditional geographical firm that then acquired what we were calling cloud firms. I don't even know if I call it a cloud firm anymore. It's just wrapping. It's running a practice now differently. And you've done it, and it makes sense. What are your thoughts, I guess, on, so private equity and the VC type stuff? What's your thoughts on that? Because we are seeing some of that too.
Yeah, that's tough. We shied away from it. They did come to us. We've had several of them come to us and give these great opportunities. The problem is it just wasn't. We didn't need the cash. We didn't need the capital.
Sure.
We didn't need what they're offering. What we're looking for, and if we're ever going to merge, we're looking for that exit down the road. And that exit down the road really wasn't there for them. It was more, how can we buy another firm? How can we grow this? How can we do that? And
so you had a position of power, because money is power. Exactly. When you have that cash, and that's what you preach, the cash reserves. I would always say this.
Yep.
I would tell, if you have the cash, you can afford to make decisions, and you can afford to make bigger mistakes too.
Yep.
In some ways.
And we made plenty of them.
Sure. As Dave Barrett says, they're lessons along the way. They're not really mistakes. He doesn't see anything as a failure or a mistake. He sees it as just a stepping stone to get to the end, right?
It's just another rock to overcome. Yep.
But yeah, position of power. When you do that, you're not reacting. This was a situation where you guys created an outcome that's bigger with the some of its parts, and both parties win. And I know that Matthew May at Acuity and Kenji, they've talked about that too. The way that they approach their deals, they've made mistakes along the way. They're another firm that's doing things differently, that have approached things with trying to have the end in mind and making sure anybody benefits from a larger transaction like this. So their last merger was kind of the same way. It's really dope. Appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff.
It's been fun, Scotty.
Yeah, this is exciting. We're going to keep writing this book, so I'm going to have you on again. And as we evolve this whole concept of idea of running a practice, because you're one of the top contributors, because you're doing it in real life. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate you, Jody. Class dismissed.